Hi and welcome. Today I'm going to be making a mini journal made out of dominoes and paper, and it opens up into a little accordion fold book. Mine is white on one side just to show you how it works. You might want to use colored paper on both sides. This is made out of 2 dominoes, some printed paper, some glue, and some thread. Put this aside here and get started. First thing you're going to need is a set of dominoes, or actually a few spare dominoes. These are just standard size. I think they're less than an inch by about 2 inches tall. Mine came from Dollar General. You can get them anywhere. You're also going to need some paper to cover them with. I've used just some vintage stickers and things. In this case, for this project, since I want to make a book, I've gone ahead and made you some pages to choose from and some covers to choose from. So we're just going to go ahead and use one of these. First thing you're going to need to do is print your paper out. Everything's already to scale and to size for you. If you don't want to use the printout, you don't have to. You just need to measure your domino and then find something that's going to fit that size. The covers need to be just a little bit bigger than the domino is, because we're going to be sanding the edges of it off to make sure it stays on there nicely. The pages, though, need to be just a little bit smaller than that domino is to make it work. So the first thing we're going to do is get some dominoes, and we're going to find 2 we're going to use for the cover. It makes no difference what numbers are on the other side. One thing I like about this project is that each of these dominoes has a groove in it, and it is just the perfect spot to fit a thread or something for holding this book together. So because of that, we're going to work on the back side or the plain side first, and that's going to be our covers. The first thing you're going to do is just pick whichever cover you want. I'm going to grab this crow here just because it's close, and I know you know how to work with scissors, so you don't need me watch me cut out a bunch of things. Cut it out. You don't have to be really perfect with this because we're going to be sanding the edges anyway. We're going to be inking too. You can probably tell my hands have already been inking a little bit today. So you've got your image that's scaled to fit the domino. Ideally, it should be just a little bit bigger. I'm actually eventually going to go back over these and use some epoxy on them to seal them. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my glue stick for this. If you're not going to use an epoxy or a sealer, you could probably use a stronger glue, but this one's going to work just fine because I will eventually be sealing this with something strong. I'm going to glue your piece right on there and just want to center it. And again, it should be just a tiny bit bigger, if you see that overlap there, than the domino. Now, I glued these earlier. Spider. Here we go. And scorpion. And you can see the scorpion is actually quite a bit bigger. What I'm going to do next, this has been glued for a while, is go ahead and just take a nail file. Sandpaper works too, whatever you have on hand. And go ahead and just sand that edge down. And what that does is it takes this from being a project where you've obviously glued something onto a domino to something that basically is part of the domino. It's part of the picture because we're sanding away any excess paper. You can even distress the top if you want to a little bit. And you just want to do it in a downward motion so the paper comes off and away. If you've got sandpaper for woodworking, it'll work. Emery boards, sanding blocks, pretty much anything that's abrasive. I'm going to go around that and just give that a good sanding at the edges. You can see now it's no longer bigger than the piece, and I've done that with this pretty spider here too. So now I've got a front cover and a back cover, and actually I sanded pretty aggressively here earlier, so some missing spots, but we can take care of that too. The next thing I'm going to do is, since I don't want particularly these white edges to show, I'm going to use some ink. Any kind of alcohol ink will do. I love these like little break apart ones. I just think they're so cute. And so like I said, well, my hands are kind of black right now and brown. Basically, you're just going to take the domino and tap them on there a little bit. Get the edges so there's no white showing. And this is an alcohol ink, so you can always go back over this with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and smooth it out the way you'd like. These are, got these from Amazon. They're like a distressed photo kit, and they're very tiny, but they're very useful. Some of those big ones are just too hard to get into small spots. So basically I'm going to do that to both of these. Again, I kind of was overzealous on this one, so I might put a little bit more ink on the front just to accommodate for that, account for that, and do it around the edges just to make sure that they match. You don't have to, I just think it gives it a nicer look. Some colors, if you're doing a domino that's a little more feminine, a little more shabby chic, maybe light colors, you can even skip that part. The white is probably fine, or you can just use a little bit of antiquing, but I like it for this. So get these out of the way. The next thing you're gonna do, once the covers are done, is you're gonna go back to the cutout and you're gonna choose, do I want the light or the dark? In this case, I believe I have cut out some dark ones. And once you've cut them out, we're just gonna go ahead and fold them accordion fold style, and I've made these so each one of the kind of age lines on the papers is exactly where you need to fold it. You'll see once it folds, it fits right inside that domino. I've left mine white on the back so you can see what I'm doing. I would recommend maybe printing your paper out on something that already has a color that you like or a pattern that you like a cardstock with a pattern on it, just so this back side will be patterned. It doesn't have to be. The next thing I like to do is fold it, make sure it's nice and even everywhere, and then you can just go right back to these little distress inks and go ahead and get the edges on there and give them a nice uniform color. That way that white is not showing quite so much, if again you've left the paper white. If you haven't, don't worry about it. There we go. I've got that. So now I have the components of the book. I've got paper. Okay, so I'm going to assemble the book now. You're going to need your dominoes that have the designs on them, some twine or string or yarn, whatever you like, whatever you have on hand. As long as it's thin enough to kind of stick in this groove. If it's too thick, it's going to make the paper kind of dimensional, and you don't want that. We're going to put it on here. I'm just going to use my glue stick. I can kind of really work that glue into the holes there and up to the edges. Lay the string across, and it needs to be relatively centered. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then I've got my accordion folded pages. I've actually already done this side, and I just want to go ahead and put them on there. There we go, face down. He doesn't have a picture. All right, face down. So what I end up with is cover, middle of the book, cover, and I can fold it up, and then when it's dry, tie these edges together using this yarn. Yeah, it's not quite dry yet, but it's still kind of doing the job here. Once you've done that, you just want to let it dry. I like to kind of clamp it together